March 15, 1963. Wells Restaurant, Harlem. A man walked through the front door carrying a .38 revolver in broad daylight. 47 people sat eating their Sunday lunch. Nobody moved. Nobody screamed. Nobody called the police. Because the gun wasn't pointed at Bumpy Johnson. It was pointed for him. The man's name was Willie "the Hammer" Brooks. He crossed the restaurant floor like he owned it. Bumpy Johnson sat in the back corner booth, cutting into his steak. Willie placed the gun on the table between them. Bumpy didn't flinch. He didn't reach for it. He just smiled. What happened in the next 8 minutes would prove why Harlem belonged to one man, and why 40,000 people would walk through fire for him. If you want the full truth about how Bumpy Johnson controlled Harlem without fear, hit like so this story reaches more people who need to understand real power. Willie Brooks had worked for the Genovese family for 6 years. He collected debts in the Bronx. He broke arms in Queens. He made people disappear in New Jersey. Vincent Gigante personally sent him to Harlem with one mission: bring Bumpy Johnson's head back in a bag, or don't come back at all. The Italian families were tired of negotiating. They wanted Harlem. They wanted the numbers rackets. They wanted the heroin pipelines. And Bumpy Johnson was the only thing standing in their way. The numbers racket alone was bringing in $2 million every month from Harlem. $2 million that Bumpy controlled completely. The Italians got nothing. They couldn't muscle in. They couldn't negotiate a percentage. They couldn't even operate in Harlem without Bumpy's permission. Every time they tried to set up shop, their operations would mysteriously burn down. Their collectors would disappear. Their money would vanish. And nobody in Harlem ever saw anything or knew anything. The Italian families held 3 emergency meetings in 1962 trying to solve the Bumpy Johnson problem. Frank Costello suggested negotiation. Bumpy refused. Carlo Gambino suggested a partnership. Bumpy laughed. Vincent Gigante suggested elimination. That's when they started planning. They studied Bumpy's movements for 8 months. They identified 43 different opportunities to take him out. Every single one failed before they even tried. Someone always tipped Bumpy off. A waiter here. A street cleaner there. A kid selling newspapers. Harlem protected Bumpy Johnson like he was their own father. The Italians had tried everything. They offered Bumpy $2 million to retire. He laughed in their faces. They threatened his family. He sent their messengers back in pieces. They killed 3 of his top lieutenants. He killed 9 of theirs. So they sent Willie Brooks, a man with 23 confirmed kills, a man who never missed, a man who didn't care about reputation or respect or the streets. Willie only cared about staying alive. And Vincent Gigante made it clear: kill Bumpy Johnson, or we kill your entire family. They had tried poison first. Bumpy's food taster died instead. They tried a car bomb. Bumpy switched vehicles at the last second. They tried a sniper. The sniper missed from 90 yards and was found 3 days later floating in the East River. They even tried bribing Bumpy's own men. 5 different soldiers took the Italian money and immediately told Bumpy everything. He let them keep the cash as a bonus for loyalty. That's when the Italians realized they weren't fighting one man. They were fighting an entire community that refused to betray him. Willie Brooks represented their last hope. He wasn't from Harlem. He had no connection to the community. He didn't know anyone who knew Bumpy. He was a ghost, a professional, someone who could walk in clean and walk out before anyone knew what happened. The Italians paid him $50,000 up front. They promised another $100,000 after the job was done. But the real motivation wasn't money. Vincent Gigante's men kidnapped Willie's wife and daughter on March 12th. They held them in a basement in Brooklyn. Willie got one message: you have 72 hours to kill Bumpy Johnson, or your family dies slowly. 3 days before that Sunday lunch, Willie walked into Wells' restaurant for the first time. He ordered coffee. He watched Bumpy hold court in his corner booth. He studied the angles, the exits, the bodyguards. Willie noticed something strange. Bumpy sat with his back exposed. No protection behind him. The kitchen door swung open every few minutes. Any professional could walk through that door and put 2 bullets in Bumpy's skull before his bodyguards could react. It seemed too easy. Willie didn't trust easy. Willie came back the next day. Same table. Same coffee. Same observation. Bumpy sat in that corner booth for 3 hours. People came and went. Some asked for favors. Some brought money. Some just wanted to shake his hand. Bumpy treated everyone the same. Rich or poor. Young or old. Criminal or civilian. He listened to every person like they were the most important person in the world. Willie watched an old woman cry about her grandson's hospital bills. Bumpy handed her $500 cash without hesitation. Willie watched a teenager ask for help getting into college. Bumpy made 2 phone calls and had the kid enrolled by the end of the conversation. On the 3rd day, Willie finally understood why the Italians couldn't touch Bumpy Johnson. It wasn't about bodyguards or weapons or strategy. Bumpy Johnson had something no amount of money or muscle could overcome. He had love. Real love. Not fear disguised as respect. Not loyalty bought with cash. Actual love from people who saw him save their neighborhood when politicians and police abandoned them. That's when Willie knew this job was impossible. But his family was still in that basement. So impossible would have to become possible. Comment respect if you believe real power isn't about fear, it's about loyalty. That same night, Willie met with his crew at a warehouse in the Bronx. He laid out the plan. They would hit Bumpy during Sunday lunch when the restaurant was packed with families. Witnesses meant nothing if you moved fast enough. Willie would walk in the front door carrying his gun openly. Not concealed. Not hidden. Right there in his hand for everyone to see. His crew thought he was crazy. But Willie understood something they didn't. In Harlem, carrying a gun near Bumpy Johnson meant one of 2 things. You were working for him, or you were about to die trying to kill him. Willie was betting everything on the first impression. The morning of March 15th arrived cold and clear. Willie put on his best suit. He loaded 6 bullets into his .38 revolver. He kissed his wife goodbye. He told his daughter he loved her. Then he drove to Harlem knowing that by dinner time, either Bumpy Johnson would be dead, or he would be. The Italian families had spotters on every corner. If Willie failed, if he ran, if he hesitated even for a second, they would know. And his family would pay the price. Willie sat in his car for 20 minutes. His hands shook. His stomach churned. He thought about his daughter's birthday party last month. She turned 7. She wanted a bicycle. Willie worked 3 extra jobs to buy it for her. She rode that bike every single day. What would happen to her if he died today? What would happen if he succeeded but lost his soul in the process? These questions had no good answers. Only choices between terrible outcomes and worse outcomes. He thought about calling the police. But the police in Harlem belonged to Bumpy Johnson. They would arrest Willie and his family would die. He thought about running, taking his family and disappearing. But the Genovese family had connections in every city. They would find them eventually. He thought about walking into Wells' restaurant and telling Bumpy everything. But why would Bumpy help him? Why would the King of Harlem care about some Italian hitman's family problems? Willie had no good options. So he chose the only path forward. He would walk in with the gun visible, see what happened, and pray that somehow everything would work out. Willie parked 3 blocks from Wells' restaurant. He checked his gun one last time. He walked slowly, deliberately, letting everyone see the weapon in his right hand. People on the street stopped and stared. Some recognized him. Most didn't. But they all knew what that gun meant. They all knew where he was going. And not a single person tried to stop him. Because in Harlem, you didn't interfere with someone walking toward Bumpy Johnson carrying heat. You got out of the way. You went home. You pretended you saw nothing. Type yes if you want to know how Bumpy Johnson survived 20 years without ever hiding from anyone. Wells' restaurant was packed like always. Families celebrating after church. Old men arguing about baseball. Kids running between tables. Willie pushed through the front door. The bell chimed. Conversations continued. Nobody looked up. Not yet. Willie held the gun down by his side, visible but not threatening. He walked past the first table, then the second, then the third. Still nobody reacted. It was like walking through a dream where the rules of reality didn't apply. Bumpy Johnson sat in his corner booth talking to 3 of his top men. Francine Johnson, Bumpy's wife, sat beside him reading the newspaper. Willie reached the table. He lifted the gun slowly, carefully, making sure everyone in the restaurant could see it now. 47 pairs of eyes turned toward him. 47 people watched Willie Brooks place a loaded .38 revolver on the table directly in front of Bumpy Johnson. Nobody screamed. Nobody ran. Nobody reacted at all. Bumpy looked at the gun. Then he looked at Willie. He didn't reach for the weapon. He didn't signal his bodyguards. He just asked one question that would save Willie's life. You here to use that, or you here to talk? Willie's hand was shaking. Sweat ran down his back. His heart hammered so hard he thought it might explode. Every instinct screamed at him to grab the gun and finish the job. Instead, Willie said 5 words that changed everything. They got my family, Bumpy. The restaurant stayed silent. Bumpy's wife folded her newspaper. Bumpy's men shifted in their seats, hands moving toward hidden weapons. But Bumpy raised one finger. Just one. Everyone froze. He picked up the gun from the table. He opened the cylinder. He counted the bullets. All 6 chambers loaded. He closed it. Then he did something nobody expected. He handed the gun back to Willie. Share this video so people understand what real power looks like when it doesn't need to prove itself. Bumpy leaned back in his booth. He told Willie to sit down. Willie collapsed into the seat, barely able to breathe. Bumpy ordered him breakfast. Eggs, bacon, toast, coffee. While they waited for the food, Bumpy asked questions. What did the Italians promise? What did they threaten? Where was Willie's family? How many men were watching? Willie answered everything. He had nothing left to lose. The Italians would kill his family whether he succeeded or failed. At least with Bumpy, there was a chance. A small chance. Maybe the only chance. Bumpy Johnson had built his empire on a simple philosophy. Respect the people who respect you, destroy the people who don't. Willie Brooks had walked into his restaurant carrying a gun in front of 47 witnesses. He could have tried to kill Bumpy. He could have caused chaos. He could have hurt innocent people. Instead, he put the gun down and asked for help. That took more courage than pulling the trigger. Bumpy recognized that courage. He valued it. And he decided right then that Willie Brooks was worth saving. Breakfast arrived. Bumpy told Willie to eat. While Willie forced food down his throat, Bumpy made 3 phone calls. The first call went to his people in the Bronx. They had Willie's family safe within 30 minutes. The second call went to his people in Queens. They convinced the Genovese spotters to look the other way for 24 hours. The third call went to Vincent Gigante directly. Bumpy told Gigante that Willie Brooks now worked for him. Gigante could accept that, or he could go to war. But if he chose war, Bumpy would burn every Italian operation in Harlem to the ground. Bumpy explained his philosophy while Willie ate. Power wasn't about violence. Any fool could pull a trigger. Any idiot could start a war. Real power was about understanding what people needed and giving it to them before they had to ask. Willie needed his family safe. Bumpy made that happen in 30 minutes. Now Willie owed him everything. Not because Bumpy threatened him, but because Bumpy saved the 2 people Willie loved most in this world. Bumpy had learned this lesson decades ago. When he first came to Harlem, he tried ruling with fear. He beat people who disrespected him. He killed people who challenged him. He took what he wanted without asking. And you know what happened? He spent every moment watching his back. He couldn't trust anyone. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't enjoy anything he built because he was always waiting for the next betrayal. Then one day, an old woman who ran a bakery on 125th Street saved his life. Someone planted a bomb under his car. She saw them do it. She warned Bumpy even though he had never helped her, never protected her, never given her a reason to care if he lived or died. Bumpy asked her why she warned him. She said because bad men were trying to hurt someone in her neighborhood, and she wouldn't stand for it. That changed everything. If this shocked you, comment loyalty below to show you understand what Bumpy Johnson really built in Harlem. Vincent Gigante was many things, but he wasn't stupid. He knew the numbers. The Italians had maybe 300 soldiers they could put on the streets of Harlem. Bumpy Johnson had 40,000 people who would die for him. Teachers, shopkeepers, factory workers, grandmothers, teenagers. People who owed Bumpy nothing except respect. People he protected. People he fed during the Depression. People whose kids he sent to college. People whose medical bills he paid when they got sick. 40,000 people who saw Bumpy Johnson not as a gangster, but as the man who kept Harlem safe when nobody else would. Gigante had a conversation with Frank Costello after Bumpy's call. Costello explained the math. Even if they killed Bumpy Johnson, they would never control Harlem. The community would burn every Italian business to the ground. The police would stop taking Italian bribes. The politicians would stop returning Italian calls. The judges would stop ruling in Italian favor. Because all of those people, the entire infrastructure that the Italian families relied on in New York, depended on stability. And killing Bumpy Johnson would destabilize not just Harlem but the entire city. Race riots. Gang wars. Federal investigations. Nobody wanted that heat. Not even the mob. Costello told Gigante something else too. Bumpy Johnson wasn't like them. The Italian families were organizations. Businesses. Hierarchies that could be dismantled if you removed the right people. Bumpy Johnson was something different. He was an idea. He represented hope for a community that had none. You couldn't kill an idea with a bullet. You could only make it stronger by trying. Gigante backed down. He told Willie's handlers to stand down. He wrote off Willie as a loss. And he never sent another shooter after Bumpy Johnson again. Because you can't kill one man when 40,000 would burn the city down to avenge him. That was the truth the Italians finally understood. That was the truth Willie Brooks learned when he walked into Wells' restaurant expecting to die. Power isn't about who has the most guns. Power is about who people choose to follow when they don't have to. Willie Brooks worked for Bumpy Johnson for the next 12 years. He never carried a gun again. He didn't need to. When you walked behind Bumpy Johnson, nobody touched you. When you spoke Bumpy Johnson's name, doors opened. When you wore Bumpy Johnson's protection, even the Italian Mafia backed off. Willie's family moved to a better neighborhood. His daughter graduated from Howard University. His son became a doctor. All because Willie had the courage to put down his gun instead of using it. Willie became one of Bumpy's most trusted advisors. Not because he was tough. Not because he could hurt people. But because he understood what Bumpy understood. That real strength was choosing not to use violence when you could. That real courage was asking for help when you needed it. That real power was building something that lasted longer than fear. Willie helped negotiate peace between rival gangs. He helped settle disputes between businessmen. He helped protect the neighborhood from outside threats. And he did it all without ever firing another shot. Years later, after Bumpy died in 1968, Willie attended the funeral. Thousands of people lined the streets. They weren't there because they feared Bumpy Johnson. They were there because they loved him. Because he chose to protect instead of exploit. Because he chose to build instead of destroy. Because he chose mercy over vengeance every single time he had the choice. Willie cried that day. Not for the gangster. Not for the legend. But for the man who saved his family when he had every reason not to. March 15, 1963. A man walked into Wells' restaurant carrying a weapon in broad daylight. 47 people watched him place that gun in front of the most dangerous man in Harlem. Nobody reacted. Not because they were scared, but because they trusted that Bumpy Johnson would handle it the right way. And he did. He always did. That's why they called him the King of Harlem. Not because he took the throne by force, but because 40,000 people gave it to him willingly. The gun that Willie Brooks brought to Wells' restaurant still exists today. Bumpy never fired it. He gave it to Francine as a reminder. A reminder that real power isn't measured in bullets. It's measured in the moments when you choose not to use them. It's measured in the lives you save instead of the lives you take. It's measured in the loyalty you earn instead of the fear you inspire. If you believe loyalty is stronger than fear, smash that like button. Comment what shocked you most about how Bumpy handled this situation. And subscribe because there are dozens more Bumpy Johnson stories that prove why Harlem belonged to one man for 30 years, and why his legend still lives on today when so many other gangsters are forgotten. Nobody reacted when Willie Brooks pulled out that gun because everyone in Harlem already knew the truth. You don't need to react when you trust the man in charge. You don't need to panic when you know he'll protect you. You don't need to run when you believe in his power. 47 people sat calmly that Sunday because Bumpy Johnson had spent 20 years proving he deserved their trust. That's not gangster business. That's leadership. That's legacy. That's why nobody reacted. Because they knew Bumpy Johnson had everything under control. And he always did.